last few weeks I've been doing a lot of running around, and just the last few days it seems like I'm finally getting putting a finish to some of the excess things to-do list I've been through. There's just a lot of obligations I took on this year for other people, and some of them big, some little. We're finishing up the tail end of a bunch of medical appointments for my mom. I've been gradually getting done with some of the other things I promised family members to do. Had to make a few trips out to a ranch where one of my sisters lives to take a bunch of things to her, things that my mom wanted to get rid of, old books and such that meant something to my sister from childhood. And then the place I'm going to be going to work, I promised a friend that I would try and line things up for him, and I wanted to make sure, mainly for myself, but also for him if he decides he wants to go there, that I'm on top of things when they reopen, which should be in a few days. And then what the hell else was I supposed to be doing? It's fuck it. I know I've got it written down. If I write something down, then chances are I'm going to get around to doing it. If I don't write it down, it just vanishes into thin air and never gets done. Anyway, this is all chicken shit that must really seem like boring, but hey, welcome to Ocala. I'm amazed I've kept my head on straight during the time I've been here, and that is debatable. But I've mentioned in a couple of my videos that I've done a lot of travel, and that always piques people's interest. And so, for whoever happens to listen to this, some of the places I've been to, as far as outside the country, first country I ever went to was Canada, and I made several visits up there, and always to Montreal. And if I would love to get back there now, just because I know the gay life there in Montreal was always supposed to be really good, and that's the place I would love. The only thing is I don't know French, at least not in terms of speaking. You can read between the lines. Then the second country that I went to, where I ended up going again and again, was Mexico. And first time was on a church youth mission trip, and we spent, I'm not sure how long. It was a few weeks down in Mexico. Most of it out in the boonies down in the Yucatan Peninsula. But then a few days coming and going in Mexico City. That also was where I had my first drink. It was a rum and coke. And I had two. And then I ended up going back to Mexico City quite a bit more as an adult. I went there when I was in my early 20s on a employee compensation survey, and then ended up years later, after I'd come back from the Pacific Islands, I wanted to really get my Spanish down. I'd let it sort of go to seed and wanted to get a fluency back. And so I took a whole summer off in Mexico City, actually on my own dime, and really got my Spanish in good shape. And then for several years I went back there every year for a while, for anywhere from like a week or two to a month at a time, and got to know Mexico City really well, and especially what they call the Zona Rosa, or the pink zone. And again, read between the lines. I had a good time there. Other places I've been, in the Pacific Islands, exactly that. I spent a couple of years in an area called Micronesia, where I worked with the governor's office. I was chief economist for the largest of 4 states that made up the largest nation that used to be part of the U.S. territories out there. And that was an area that used to be Japanese occupied during World War II. And then I flew through Hawaii quite a bit then. I loved Waikiki and always spent a week coming and going there. I spent a very short visit in Tokyo. It was affordable because one of my sisters was married to a Navy pilot who was stationed out there. Back to Latin America, I've been to El Salvador. I was there visiting a friend with the U.S. Agency for International Development. It's part of the State Department. And then I took tours down there for work in Colombia, where I was working on a health institution's hospital survey, and then down in Ecuador, where I was working on a survey of it was related to urban environment and housing development. And let's see, what else? Well, those are the highlights. Anyway, in terms of within the U.S., well, here's a quick tour. I was born in Minnesota. We went to Missouri, Hawaii, Orlando, Maryland, outside the D.C. border. Then I lived in D.C. After that, going to school. My parents moved to Miami. I visited back and forth to Miami, made a lot of visits up to New York, and some to Chicago. By the time I was out of school, which I went to in D.C. and Princeton, New Jersey. Then eventually I got this job detailing me overseas in Micronesia. In between all this, before and after the trips to Latin America, came back from Micronesia, spent about 10 years living in San Francisco, between there and moving to Ocala, Florida. Made a number of visits to Las Vegas for computer conferences and visiting a cousin out there. And there's bunches of places I went to in between there, but that's, how can I forget Guam? When I was in the Pacific Islands, Guam was the closest place we had to go for a weekend for a good time. It was an hour-and-a-half air flight there, hour-and-a-half back, and we would take turns going up there and doing all the shopping at the mall to bring back stuff that we couldn't get on the islands. So, I'm talked out. Anyway, that's some of the stuff about where I've been, places I've been. I'll save other places that I have an interest in going to from here for another video sometime soon.